What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Scott Geirman with unfortunately, some off-season news to discuss. And this is an interesting story today, Scott. Reports coming out that Dodgers general manager Brandon Gomes was invited to interview for the Red Sox job and decided to turn that down. And he's not alone, for what it's worth. The same thing happened with Philadelphia Phillies GM Sam Fuld, Minnesota Twins president of baseball operations, and Tampa Bay Rays employee John Daniels as well, all turning down the Red Sox job. Of course, Gomes, being the Dodgers GM, makes this notable. So I'm curious from your perspective. This feels like good news for the Dodgers. One potential job that Gomes might not be leaving for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's on a couple different fronts. I'm sure, same podcast for other teams saying a lot of the same thing. Is this more of an indication on, their guys staying within in-house, and they're in a, much better position? Phillies are in a great spot. Dodgers are in a great spot looking towards the future. Or is this more of an indication of where the Red Sox are at, from an organizational standpoint, that a lot of these, high ranking front office guys are staying put? And Brandon Gomes joining the team in 2017, he was director of player development. He's in a good place, and perhaps he's looking for a different position, or this is a ride where he's on, and then Andrew Friedman confines a lot in him.
Yeah.
And Brandon Gomes, he's just a very valuable piece to the Dodgers organization, and I'm happy he's staying.
Yeah, and I think it to me, it has way more to do with the Red Sox than anything else.
Right?
I think if you're Gomes, you're in a spot where, sure, you're not the ultimate decision maker, which I'm sure he would like to be, and yet at the same time, you're in the perfect spot where you're going to get to cherry pick your next job. Like you can have Farhan Zaidi was in the same spot, rumored for a bunch of places. He ends up taking the Giants job. Of course, that hasn't quite worked out, I'm sure, the way he had hoped, thankfully. But I think Gomes is in the same boat. When you look at the Red Sox, Scott, I think the report came in Kyle Bloom's time there. They had cut payroll by like $55 million from the beginning to the end. Obviously, the Mookie Betts trade was involved in that tenure. And so, like, the Red Sox seem to be going a direction that's just fascinating. And part of it, to me, Scott, just makes me appreciate the Dodgers, because we take for granted that the Dodgers spend, and we could get into, did they spend enough last offseason? But look at the Red Sox. Look at a team that's a huge market, a notable franchise, and yet they have become an organization that's cutting costs, and the top GM candidates don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to dissect there. And I'm just, really curious how Brandon Gomes' rise has been steady through the Dodgers. And it's fascinating stuff to where the Dodgers have come from 2017 and, even prior, but Gomes joining in 2017 to where they are now, how they feel they've stayed at the top of all of their prospect pools, things like that. And they're continuing to develop that. And Brandon Gomes has a stamp all over that. It's just, I can't say enough how Dodger fans, we should be happy that he's staying, turned down that job. If the Red Sox decide that they're given the green light to spend, and they very well might this offseason, a guy like Brandon Gomes could go in there, and if he's set, if he has all the resources around him, he could build that into something that's, very sustainable. Same Andrew Friedman like, and that's something that for, an AL East powerhouse has deep pockets. I don't know if, Red Sox owners are willing to do that right now. So Brandon Gomes, standing pat, might want to wait for a perfect time.
And look, for Dodgers fans, just to turn this one last way, this is a huge boost if he doesn't leave for a different job at any point this offseason, because we're going to be spending a lot of time over the next couple of months talking about the Dodgers are well below the luxury tax threshold right now. They have tons of holes. There's tons of different opportunities out there for them. The trade deadline, you're kind of hamstrung. You're limited by the guys that are available, and there's not very many of them. And then you've got to negotiate, trade value. With free agency, there's a bunch of pitching out there. We know the Dodgers need pitching. There's going to be some intriguing bats out there. There's trade opportunities. Teams are way more willing to trade in the offseason than they tend to be during the trade deadline. At least prices are more reasonable. So I think that, to me, is the biggest headline for the Dodgers, is that one of your key, I won't say decision makers, because I think Andrew Friedman is the decision maker, but one of your key inputs into the decision-making process not being removed midway through a big stretch of time for the Dodgers is probably the best piece of this of all.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's just been a lot said about, back just to wrap it up with the, turning down this Red Sox job. It never felt right the way that Chaim Bloom was treated out there.
Yeah.
It really was kind of a really cloudy tenure for him. And I know that Heim was, well respected in around baseball, and I'm sure he still is. It's just a very, murky spot. We don't know what they're kind of doing. They're always going to be competitive just because the things that they value organizationally will keep them in that mix.
Yeah.
But, from a standpoint, from that concrete, foundation, who knows where they're at?
Yeah. Yeah. Payroll slashed, farm system greatly improved under him, but the fact that he still got fired at the end of that tenure, I think is
So
probably
weird.
scaring some folks off. So
Weird.
Well, hey folks, we appreciate you joining us again. Even though the Dodgers season is over, tons of content coming at you here on our YouTube channel. So please make sure you subscribe, ring the notification bell. That is Scott Geirman. I am Jeff Spiegel. Enjoy the rest of your day, and as always, go Dodgers.